Hi, everyone. This is Stacy Massano, and we are doing our WIMIN Podcast, which is Women's Inclusive Mortgage Industry Network. And today I have Jackie Spillman with Lone Star Signing, and we're going to talk about online notarization. So, hi, Jackie. How are you doing today?
Hi, Stacy. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Well, we're all in this together and we're all, you know, making our way through and navigating through. So you have so much experience in the remote online notarization world. And I just kind of wanted to get from your experience, what are you seeing out there with remote online notarization and the adoption? I know early on with COVID, it was a really big push and it seems like it maybe a little stall, but then we have
Mhm.
others doing it as well. So what are you seeing?
So, I guess if I had to sum it up in one word, I think that word would be hesitancy.
Mhm.
This is a huge change, and this is the mortgage industry that we're dealing with. So, there are so many moving parts. There's so many different laws that we have to make sure that we're abiding by. A lot of lenders still have not accepted e-notes, so they're not able to allow RON to be used on their files. But I am seeing movement toward adopting RON in certain types of cash transactions. It's a little bit slower than anticipated. Almost all of the states, with the exception of about four or five, have some type of RON policy in place, even if it's a temporary one because of the pandemic. But I think it's just the fear of the unknown. We typically don't like change.
Yeah, change can be hard.
Yeah.
So for those, I'm sure many people have heard of Ron and remote online notarization, but kind of give a little background about you and how you came into this business, and maybe explain for someone that is just now hearing about remote line online notarization what that is and yeah.
So, remote online notarization is basically a way to conduct the closing virtually. So, just like if you're having a Zoom conversation with someone, you would have both parties to meet inside of a virtual room. There would be a notary present, and they would notarize it. I mean, just like you would do it in person, but everything is online. And I know that can be scary for a lot of people because they think, oh my gosh, is this safe? How do I know that it's that, that um how do I know that this is authentic? Every platform has to meet certain standards. So there has to be the knowledge-based authentication. So they're asking the clients questions that only they would know the answers to. And then there's also a tamper-proof seal placed on every single transaction. So they're actually tracking when you're clicking to sign and when the notary is clicking to insert the notarization. So it really is something that they put a lot of thought into, and they've got the tamper proof seal, so it really is safe.
Mhm. I know I personally have gone through KBA questions, and they're very, very detailed that literally the individual, myself, would only know the answers to those questions. And
Yeah,
a few of them are a little hard.
yeah.
I guess that makes it a lot safer.
Yeah, well,
So,
and they give you a couple of tries through, so if you mess up on the first one, you can give it another try.
yeah, yeah, which is good, which is good. So, kind of tell me, and I know we talked about this before, but I just really want the audience to hear. I think your story is so amazing and how you came into this and what you're doing and how you really wrap customer service around this and kind of go into a little detail
Okay.
on that.
Okay. So I started out as an accountant, and I absolutely loved accounting. I got my master's in accounting and financial management, and I sat for the CPA exam. So that was where I was going. That's all I ever really wanted to do. And then at 43, my husband and I found out we were expecting. So life changed.
Mhm.
And I really thought I was going to be able to go back and do the same thing that I had done before. But after having a new baby, especially at that late age, I wanted more time at home and I needed work life balance. And most accountants really struggle with that because you've got month end closes and there's just all kinds of things that draw your attention away from home. So, I started working as a loan signing agent. I do have a background in real estate, and I thought, well, this might be a pretty good fit. Um, and I quickly learned that not all notaries are created equal. I thought every notary poured through the documents to make sure they understood how to present the documents in a concise and efficient manner, and that's not the way it was. So I saw a huge opportunity to be able to come alongside title and escrow and match their work ethic and integrity. So I started training notaries myself, and I'm going to say I probably worked with 500 notaries my first year, just making
Wow.
sure they understood what was expected at a closing table because the one thing that we really try to focus on is the client experience. The only reason we're doing a mobile closing is because they can't go into the title office. So we want to bring that closing to them and we want to make it special. And even though they're not in a title office, we're still an extension of the lender. We're an extension of that escrow officer. So we really try to focus on the big picture, making sure that we're celebrating the achievement. I mean, who knows what the transaction has gone through. There are hurdles, getting approved for the loan and going through underwriting. And through the pandemic, we saw, prices went through the roof and people were putting multiple offers on homes. So this was an opportunity for us to kind of separate ourselves from the pack and make sure that the clients were celebrated at the closing. So that's what we focus on. We work with our notaries. We have a relationship with them. They've got they've got a dedicated phone line. If they're in a closing and they have a tough question, we've got a team that's able to help them. But yeah, that's just kind of something that we decided to do, and it's giving space to other women who may have challenging situations at home. I've got a son that's got some special needs, and this has given me the opportunity to still work, to still add value, and still be able to take care of my son and make him a priority. So it's been a wonderful journey, and I absolutely love it.
That's great, and that's, as our technology is moving forward, and with the remote online notarization, people's lives are so busy. Our lives are so busy that it gives that freedom to other women, moms, dads to be able to work from home and do this because how many notaries do you have within your company network?
It's well over 1,000 that are on our personal payroll. Now we offer services through a couple of different types of platforms, but yeah, we have over 1,000 that are throughout the country, nationwide, that help us close all over the country.
That's amazing. I've been a notary myself and have worked in the title and the lending side. And to your point, it is different because you do have your consumer borrowers asking questions. So
Exactly.
as a previous notary myself, I'm glad I had the mortgage and title background like you're speaking of, because if I would have just been just a notary without that knowledge, I
Mhm.
wouldn't have been able to answer the questions. I'm sure like you've experienced, borrowers, they want that explanation on certain things. And yes, we're not attorneys, but just to explain some different aspects on going over a CD, for instance,
Exactly.
that
Mhm.
if you don't have that knowledge, sometimes that can stop the closing. And
Mhm.
so I think that's, the value add that you bring because you have that experience.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important when you're working with notaries, when you're choosing a signing service, making sure that that the notaries understand the assignment because that is our job as a loan signing agent, is to walk them through that entire document package. And as you said, we're not attorneys, so we're not giving legal advice, but at the same time, when they have questions, we should be able to answer basic questions and give them an overview of the process and what each of those documents mean. So that's one thing that we're really proud of. We actually wrote scripts for every single document. So if notaries are struggling and they're saying, well, what would I say for this one? Or what do I say for this one? We've summarized all of that for them. So um, it was a little overwhelming when I took my first closing, and I was thinking to myself, the company that gave it to me, they don't know whether or not I can pull this off. Now, I knew I could pull that off, but I think the average person giving them a 150-page package and expecting them to go through it, I think without some training, it could be very difficult, and it could be frustrating for the consumer as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I love about, you and your organization is you provide that training. You have that specialized service to the mortgage industry and title industry. So I think that is phenomenal.
Thank
So
you.
I'll ask you two questions. What difficulties are you seeing out there in the remote online notarization from an e-notary? And then what rewards are you seeing out there from an e-notary perspective?
So I'm going to start with the rewards. And I
Okay.
think right off the bat, the most obvious reward is convenience. You
Mhm.
think about how busy our lives are now. I mean, we're working, across states, and some of us are working internationally. So being able to close on a loan without having to physically be present is a huge advantage. It's a huge time saver, and it's a convenience for the consumer. So I think for me that would be the biggest thing that I'm seeing. Um, and for those that are tech savvy, Ron works great. Now, there are those that are a little intimidated by the process because you do have a few technical hurdles that you have to overcome. And I think that would be the biggest challenge that we're seeing right now. If you're working with clients that are in another country, they may not have stable Wi-Fi connection. So something like that could derail the process. And then, as you mentioned before, the KBA questions. I mean, when you think about how many people are changing houses and cars and things at a much faster pace now than we were 20, 30 years ago. So if you're asking, where did you live 20 years ago? Some people have to struggle a little bit to come up with those questions, or to come up with the answers to those. But by and large, it's working really well. And we've got a dedicated team of notaries. We have our own Ron notaries. So
Mm.
rather than having to go to, Google a notary platform, we've got Ron notaries that are walking borrowers through at a dedicated time that's convenient for them, and getting the closing process done. So that makes a difference, and it's that extra layer of client service that we're able to provide.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I do think that as our world is ever evolving into technology, I love technology and I sometimes don't like technology because will we ever leave our homes? I'm
I know.
I'm doing my doctor's appointments online, which is
Exactly.
great because when I'm traveling and I need to, I get a little sniffle or what have you, I'm like, oh, I know a sinus infection's coming on. I'm gonna get online
Yeah.
with the doctor and get the scripts called in. So, but you know, it is great for that convenience and um, you know, and it's also great for those that, maybe aren't as tech savvy that they can still go into the title office. It's really meeting the consumer where they're at, right?
It is. It is. Yeah,
I
it
love.
absolutely is meeting the consumer where they're at. Some people want the closing experience. They want to be able to go into the title office, and some people want the closing to come to them in their home, and then some people just want to do it online and be done with it. So,
Mhm.
whatever the case, we're happy to accommodate.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Well, so I know you've been in business for a little over 5 years, right?
Yes. Mhm.
And one of the things that I just commend you on is going into and starting your own business because that can be scary. And I think it can be scary, to working moms because juggling so much as it is. So I think that's such a testament. Can you kind of speak on what really motivated you into taking that leap of faith?
So this was a true leap of faith. When I left my job, I spent about a year, and to be completely transparent and honest with you, I spent about a year, and I was praying and meditating on the first three chapters of the book of Ephesians. At the end of that year, I will tell you, it felt as though this business was just kind of dropped in my lap. The opportunity presented itself and the steps were just so easy. I remember when I came up with the name Lone Star Signing, and I was praying about that one night, um, and I was thinking to myself, well, it can't be Lone Star Signing because this is Texas, and certainly that name is already gone. I woke up the next morning and registered Lone Star Signing. It was available. I mean, every little thing just seemed to like fall in place. Even with the notaries, I was shocked at the number of professional women like myself who were ready for maybe not retirement, but maybe just something different, a change in their career, and the number of women that have come to me and have said, "This has changed my life. I've got work-life balance. I'm doing something that I love. I love meeting the people." That to me fills my cup. Those are the stories that I absolutely love to hear when other women can still contribute, but then still take care of family. I mean, that balancing work and family can be difficult. But yeah, it's working out really great, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and so grateful for the amazing team of notaries that I have around me.
That's awesome. And, as I'm finding, because I have a girlfriend, she's the predominant breadwinner and her husband stays at home with the kids. So we see that as well. It's not just women these days, it's the men that are staying home.
Yeah,
So, it gives an opportunity for both men and women to have, this work-life balance and have this flexibility. And I just think, all the training that you do, and you're so dedicated to the mortgage and title industry, that is a huge difference maker.
thank you. Yeah, we do put a lot of effort in up front. We do a lot of training up front. We do a lot of phone calls with the notary up front, but it saves a ton of time on the back end because let's face it, when we're doing a closing, especially if it's after hours, that closing has to be flawless. There's not a lender, there's not an escrow officer, there is no one that you can call and ask a question to in most cases. So we have to make sure that we're delivering flawless service and getting the documents back in a manner that title and the mortgage industry expect of us.
That's amazing. Well, anything else that you'd like to add? I mean, kudos to you all the way around.
Well, thank you so much, and I just want to thank you for creating this platform and this amazing organization. The work that you do, it does not go unnoticed. It's very much appreciated, not just by me, but other women that I talk to, women that know you. They absolutely support you and love what you're doing. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you. Thank you. Well, I know that you have your information on the screen, but do you just want to kind of shout that out on how people can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So Lone Star Signing, you can go to www.lonestarsigning.com, and Lone Star is spelled just like the state, Lone. And then also you can give us a call, 281-417-5771.
And you are Texas and nationwide.
We are completely nationwide. We do just as many closings in other states as we do in Texas.
Well, thank you so much. Like we said before, the RON, the e-notary technology and our industry is ever moving forward. And it's just so good to hear from an actual e-notary company that's in the weeds doing the actual RON closings and to get your perspective on that.
Well,
So,
thank you.
yes, we'll have all the information at the end of this podcast. And